listen to, do remember and accept. I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words.
Can you hear me well? Yes. This is quite the turnout for the last weekend of the year. I was thinking, how many people will come today? So I'm very glad to see you here. My name is Sozan, and again, thank you for being here for this talk, and thank you wherever you are in time and space listening to this. I also want to thank the Tanto Tim Wicks for inviting me to give this talk. Thank you, Tim. And of course, my teacher, Rinzo Ed Sadison, for many years of compassionate love and wisdom. Thank you, Ed. About 15 years ago, I was still living in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. That's where I come from. That's where I was born and raised. And at that time, I was practicing Zen in a different lineage from a different teacher called Taisen Deshimaru, a very widespread lineage in South America and Europe. And who was my partner at that time, we were not married yet, Paula, she went to a talk. It was this talk that the cycle was called something about wabi-sabi, and it was sumie ink painting and ikebana and tea ceremony. So she went to this talk because of the ink painting. She's an artist. And then she came back to me and she said, you know what, you need to go there. Like, go to the next talk, not the ikebana one, but the tea ceremony one. I think this is great. So I did. I went. And this very renowned tea teacher, Higurashi Sensei from Mexico, he was giving a talk with Emiko Sensei, who was a teacher there in Argentina, about tea ceremony and wabi-sabi, and there was a tea demonstration, a tea ceremony demonstration. And I just connected so quickly with what was going on. It was some kind of zazen in motion, I would put it that way. It was kind of zazen in motion. It was something else. So I stayed behind after the talk and had a very informal, quick chat with the teacher there about how this related to Zen and can I do it? It was interesting to understand that the Zen connection with the teacher wasn't that deep in the sense of she wasn't a Zen practitioner or meditator, but the connection between tea and Zen was very clear to me. So I started going to tea class. For those of you who do not know this, Chado or tea ceremony actually comes from Zen. And during the ceremony or the gathering, there's a lot that has to do with Zen teachings. One of the main things that happen is there's a scroll in the tea house, and the teacher will discuss this scroll with in class, the teacher with the students, but in a tea gathering, the host with the guests will discuss this teaching. And it's called Sengo, which means something around in Japanese like Zen language. And this scroll can only be done, the calligraphy needs to be done by a Zen master. It cannot be done by a calligrapher. It actually needs to be done, the calligraphy, by a Zen master, because it's a Zen teaching. So a lot is happening in regards to this meeting of hosts and guests and teachings, and I was completely drawn to it because I felt it was something informing my practice in a different way, in a very deep, meaningful way, and it worked very well. Actually, there is a phrase in Japanese, which is cha zen ichimi, which means tea and zen have the same taste. And I think that's pretty accurate. So among these teachings, one of the things that are key to the study of tea is the aspect of this doesn't start or ends in the tea house. This is a way to live your life. Practice is a way to live your life, right? We often say that Zen is not a book in your bookshelf, it's actually the bookshelf itself. So, and tea as I would say, or at least this is the way I interpret it, as an expression of Zen, because I like to call tea an expression of Zen, works that way. The tea ceremony was, at least in the schools of tea that remain today, or the more relevant schools of tea that remain today, they were started by the Zen family, S-E-N, not Z, S-E-N family in Japan. And Sen no Rikyu, who lived from 1522 to 1591, was one, or if not the teacher, that actually not only just founded the Urasenke school of tea, which is the one that I've been studying in, but was very relevant towards making tea more of a mainstream activity and not just for the elite or the samurais. So Sen no Rikyu brought tea to the front. It's interesting that I realized that Sen no Rikyu was contemporary of Dogen, right? So he was born in 1522, and Dogen was at 1200 something. So it's like 203 years, and I think in Zen terms that's more or less in the same vicinity. So one of the things that Sen no Rikyu did or established is how do we do this? How do we live our life in a way that represents what happens in the tea house, but that has some kind of actionable teaching or guidelines? And one of the things he brought forth is this concept of Wakei Sei Jaku. And that's what I'm going to focus on my talk today. Wakei Sei Jaku. Wakei Sei Jaku are the 4 pillars, let's put it that way, that hold this house, temple we call life, according to Zen no Rikyu. And they would translate as Wa as harmony, Kei as respect, Sei as purity, and Jaku as tranquility. So Zen no Rikyu said, if you have harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility in your life, we're good. Okay, those are the 4 pillars that need to be cultivated and need to exist in order to hold this temple that we call life. And of course, I wish it was that easy, and of course it's not. And of course, there's a deeper aspect of Wakei Sei Jaku, of harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility than what we usually think of in our daily lives. And that's the interesting part. The interesting part, for me at least, was, okay, how can I explore these 4 pillars in my practice, not just in my tea practice, but in my practice in general and in my life, so they start making more a deeper meaning or holding this temple in a way that's more robust. Zen no Rikyu wrote something that I really like, and it was very much related to this concept of Wakei Sei Jaku. And he said, though you wipe your hands and brush the dust and dirt from the vessels, of what use is all worth if the heart is still impure. So again, though you wipe your hands and brush, though you wipe your hands and brush the dust and dirt from the vessels, of what use is all this work if the heart is still impure? And I think that in itself is a beautiful koan. And it's been guiding me and my practice for many years now. So these profound teachings that we find in the tea ceremony, and that they come from, or are, let's say, borrowed from Zen. I believe there's something that gets informed through this tea ceremony and comes back to us for our daily lives. And as I was saying, there is a everyday or more, I don't want to say superficial, but the usual meaning we give to these four concepts. And then there's that deeper exploration of each one of these. And we'll start with with harmony, right? And we think of harmony usually, or at least I think of things that flow, things that there's no messiness, there's no tension, there's something is harmonious, something it's flowing. And yet there is a request by Zen no Rikyu to explore this further and understand how not it's just about harmony between people, but harmony between people and nature, and harmony between nature, within nature itself. So on one side there is this understanding of harmony as flow, but then what goes maybe another step forward, and it says, and actually one of our main teachings is one of the main teachings Zen no Rikyu brings forth, which is the Sandokai, the harmony of difference and equality. So that's the extra step in this first concept, wa, that we are exploring. And the Sandokai, the harmony of difference and equality, it's maybe one of the best examples of what we're talking about here. There's a book you might know from Suzuki Roshi called Branching Streams Flow in the Darkness that actually is an exploration of the Sandokai and talks a lot about this. And the harmony that we're talking about here in this wa concept is the harmony that happens when the different and the same come together as one. When the difference and the same come together as one. So, of course, different and same sound a bit kind of like a dual concept. So we could say, well, is there anything that's different? Is there anything that's the same? And of course, from our daily lives and the relative point of view, yes, there are things that are different and there are things that are the same. And the unity and the cooperation that happens when we understand that this kind of harmony, this depth of harmony, actually becomes true when we can embrace difference, when we can embrace what's different and hold it as an absolute, hold it as something that's complete in itself, is a wa that Zen no Rikyu is talking about here. So, and of course, the easy way to explain this is with music, right? We say that in music, individual notes that are different come together as a unique sound when played together, and that sound can be harmonious, and there's a harmony there. Same aspect here. It's how we can connect, embrace, and yes, flow with what's not the same and what it actually is the same. Sorry about the koan here, but this concept have a bit of a nuance to explain. So what harmony is, and this first pillar is, can we live, embrace, connect with what's similar or what feels close and what's different and doesn't feel so close. If we can actually connect with that, if we can actually penetrate the depth of this aspect of uniqueness or sameness, then that first pillar appears or is there. So that's the first point. Can we harmonize? Can we connect with what's different? When Wa is present, when we can connect with this harmony, we merge sameness and difference in one single body of Buddha. That's not my words, that's Senriku's words. So, first concept, Wa, harmony between what's different and what's the same. Then we have K, respect. This is, for me, a very interesting one, because respect has different meanings for different people, and maybe there's a common understanding that has to do with authority. And yeah, sometimes when I say respect, I see some clinging, like, what are we talking about here? And that's okay, because respect is I think it's an important concept to study, especially when we go deeper in the meaning. Respect comes from the Latin word respectus, which translates as attention, consideration, and this one is the one I really like, to look again. Respectus in Latin translates as to look again. And of course, when we look again, what we're doing basically is paying attention. We're paying attention. Paying attention, it's a key practice for us. And I've never equated before paying attention with respect. But when we start digging deeper into this concept, to look again, consideration, what we're saying respect is connecting, really connecting. And it makes sense. Usually if you don't respect something or don't care about something, there's some kind of disconnection going on there, and it's just it kind of doesn't matter. When you respect something, usually it's your attention goes there because there's this kind of respect. But this looking again, this attention, is not just for things that are what we would consider worthy of our respect, maybe in common terms. Because I respect this, but I actually do not respect you or that or this. And the teaching here is, no. Absolutely everything that exists in the universe deserves your respect. Everything. Because there's nothing that you shouldn't be paying attention to. And that's part of our teachings, right? We're saying in Zen, what is Zen? One of the 1,000 definitions. Well, it's paying attention to the moment or to what's in front of you. So is there anything that could be in front of you and you would not pay attention? Well, not according to that definition. And this is what respect K is bringing up here. Everything is worthy of and should be respected. The 3 poisons, right? Greed, hate, delusion. I say, well, I don't care. I want to be far away from those. No. If you do not respect them, then there's no attention. And if there's no attention, then you know what happens. They take you by surprise in so many ways. Sun Tzu in The Art of War, the first thing that he says is respect your enemy, right? And we could go in all sorts of rabbit holes with that. But this respect that we're talking about is pay attention, be there, keep that connection alive. And of course, when we look again in this K way of living life, Suzuki Roshi taught us to look again, and guess what? With beginner's mind. So it's not just looking again full of ideas and full of preconceptions of what we are looking at, but just to look again and maybe clean that up before every time this happens. And we look again, and we look again. And that's respect according to K. And this respect is a deep attitude of humility. Humility towards oneself, towards the elements, and towards others. In this respect that we're talking about here, that's not that, again, it's not that common concept of authority, but this respect of looking again, of connecting with everything that has our respect. It's mostly about humility. And the humility that comes from respect is the kind of humility that makes us great, not small. It's that humility that empowers us and everything and everyone around us. So the humility that comes from respect makes us great. It brings life. So again, from the absolute point of view, everything, whatever in the universe requires and should be respected. And one thing that's important here is Wa as this harmony and then K as this respect. This doesn't mean we need to agree with everything. Just want to be clear about that. Respect doesn't mean okay, you're right. Respect, K, has to do more with being present with whatever is happening, and in that sense, and beginner's mind, as I said, in that sense, letting it in. Of course, you might not agree. Of course, something might be terrible. And you would say, Sozan, how can I respect this? If this is horrible, what's happening here? So remember, we're talking about a deeper definition of respect. And if we don't have that K with that horrible thing happening, then we disengage. And if we disengage, change doesn't happen, within or without. So this is why this is such an important pillar, I think, in our lives, in our practice and in our lives. Because when, and as you see, they start kind of working together. When there is this harmony of Wa, where we can actually bring together, embrace, absolutely everything, closer to us, similar to us, or completely different, and maybe that we don't even begin to understand. And all of that we can actually respect from this point of view of humility that makes us great. Something really, really starts to transform there. And these two of the four pillars start working together. So this K is to look again and to do that free from our own conditioned self. Free from our own points of view and ideas, beginner's mind, and we look again and we connect. K. I hope this starts making some sense. This respect we're talking about, it comes from a deep sense of giving and receiving. We chant, when we chant about the giver, the receiver, and the gift, this is what's happening here with respect. And one final thing about K, which I think it's kind of important, we usually do not learn from something or somebody we do not respect. And Sen Noriki was very emphasized this point. You learn, you're open to absorb, to learn from things you actually respect. Now, if you can actually work through your practice to respect everything that exists, you'll be a student of the universe, right? Everything will teach you if you can respect everything. So that's why this is also so important, right? It's just going back to this idea of closeness, of openness, of looking again, and hence learning. Wa and K. Next comes Sei, purity. And the dictionary defines purity, or actually it defines impurity, I'm going to read this, as something adulterated, contaminated, diluted, tainted, or weakened. That's what we say when we say impurity or impure. So of course, purity is kind of the opposite to that. And I think this is a vivid image that evokes in each one of us. Yeah, I can understand what impure means and what this and how I can relate to something that's impure. But also, and this is very important, impure or pure has a lot to do with our conditioned self, has a lot to do with our culture, has a lot to do with our everything. Where we were born, our likes and dislikes. So what's pure or impure to me might be different to what's pure or impure to you. And I think this is an important point to consider. So one of the key elements here in this teaching, when we go, as I said, a bit deeper, is to go beyond our conditioned selves, our likes, dislikes, etc., to go deeper into this definition of what's pure and what's not. And it's easy sometimes to understand what's pure or not with things that we handle in our daily lives, like water. Yeah, I can, this pure water, impure water, yeah, I get it. Or a metal. That's easy. But then how about our path of practice? Or how about our practice? Or what is the teaching here? Of course, it's not about knowing what's pure or impure water, but it's what's impure or pure in the deeper meaning, in our practice, in our lives. What does Sei mean in the context of Buddha's way? And this is really interesting because purity is a very aspirational concept. Like we want to be pure. And actually, in many religions in the world, purity is something to strive for. Like we want to try to be pure, and we purify things with water, or we purify ourselves from sins by confession, or there's all this thing around wanting to be pure and needing to be pure in different practices and religions. And this is important, I think, because it can get us to a place of a gaining mind, right? The striving to be pure no matter what, and then we enter this place of dualism where this is pure, or you are pure, or what I did or what I didn't do is pure or impure, and that doesn't get us anywhere great, I don't think. Every time we go into this dualism and we engage in this, again, gaining mind, and this becomes an objective, and that's a recipe for dukkha. That's a recipe for difficulty and suffering. So then what is pure? So great. If we're trying not to enter a dualistic place or approach, and if we know we are conditioned and everything we're seeing, it's pure or impure according to our idea of purity, what does the teaching say about, say, purity? And the teaching says that the only thing that we can really find as pure is consciousness. The consciousness of the present moment. The attention to here and now, that's the deeper meaning of say. So instead of trying to purify or to understand purity or impurity in many aspects of this dualistic approach that we have as human beings, or with this gaining mind, this teaching of say says the only thing that can be or should be pure is your consciousness of what's happening right here, right now. And then you can ask yourself, what's diluting that? What's corrupting that? So what's making my clear awareness of the here and now not pure? And then it's something that it's not in the future, right? It's not something that I'm going to maybe attain at some point. It's how do I strive, how do I practice to make this particular instant in time pure, say. And when that happens, then everything else is inherently pure. So it doesn't depend on our own concept, on our conditioned concepts of what's pure and impure. As long as we understand the purity of the present moment, everything else becomes pure in itself. It can be pure evil, don't get me wrong, right? But it's pure. And the way this happens if we're here, if we're here now. So, if we can embrace the wholeness, the difference, what's different, what's the same, and then really pay attention to this. Looking again with respect, with a beginner's mind. And we do this in the absolute purity of the present moment, then something starts to happen there. Something starts to get realized. And that's the third of these 4 pillars, of these four teachings. So then what happens? This 4th pillar, Jaku, tranquility, actually only can exist if these 3 first pillars are there. So we talk about tranquility, calmness in our practice as something, a state of being that happens when practice happens. And I really like these 4 pillars and what I'm bringing up here, because it's very, very actionable, I think, and a good thing to bring into 2025. It's very, very actionable. And this tranquility, this Jaku that we're talking about, as I say, cannot exist if Wa, Ke, and Se are not there. If we cannot embrace sameness and difference, if we cannot respect everything that exists, and if we cannot be absolutely present and pure in the present moment, then there's no tranquility. And when these other concepts start moving us in our practice towards these aspects, then tranquility emerges, tranquility happens. And this tranquility that we're talking about in this calmness is not a psychological state of dreaminess or a state of relaxation. I always like that here in Beginner's Mind Temple, many people come for the first time and we ask them, or I ask them, why are you here? And they say, because I want to be relaxed. So I'm here in the Zen Temple. I want to be calm. And yet this calmness that we understand in our daily lives and that we read about in different places in social media is not what Jaku is referring to. This calmness is not something that happens, but it's a state of being. It's a state of being that really grounds oneself in the world, as in this teaching, this particular teaching, as a consequence of these other aspects of harmony, of respect, and of purity. And as Suzuki Roshi used to say, mental calmness does not mean that you should stop your activity. True calmness must be found in the activity itself. We say it's easy to be calm in inactivity. It's difficult to be calm in activity. But calm in activity is a true calm. And this is the perfect definition of Jaku. Is that tranquility, that calmness that happens in the motions, in the activity of daily life. And it's interesting. It's not something that we can actually, or I think it's not something that we can force ourselves into. We can calm ourselves, I don't know, scented candles or bubble bath or whatever you want to do to calm yourself. Zazen, great. We're going a step beyond this. It's not just that state of awareness, but it's more this state of being. I hope I'm being not too cryptic about this. But it's the way we are in the world, that's tranquil, that's calm. And it's actually a consequence. It's not something, as I said, it's not something that we can force ourselves into. this tranquility I'm talking about is a state of mindfulness, of bliss, repose and bliss. You've heard that before. That's what we're talking about. Of unity. So, Jaku, this calmness, this tranquility, as I say, is a result of the other three, and it's like a bamboo or a flower that grows strong and that we fertilize with our connection, our looking again, and our being present in the present. So, at one point I traveled to Japan for 6 months, 2015, to study tea. And that's the first time I heard these teachings. And actually I can remember the moment that happened. And I was holding a bowl of tea and saying, this actually makes sense to me. And this is something that I can connect with, work with, practice with. Embracing change, embracing difference, with beyond my conditioned self. Respecting, looking again, being present, and hence feeding or growing that state of awareness, of mindfulness, of bliss, repose and bliss into my daily life. As I say, something I feel very actionable that we can bring, we can keep on studying and maybe use in some way in our practice in the year and the years to come. Wa Kei Sei and Jaku, I think an amazing, beautiful way to be in the world. Thank you very, very much. So I think we're going to go to Q&A now, but first I would invite you to stand up, move, stretch, whatever you need for the next few minutes. And there's a microphone. Yeah, there's a microphone there.
Thank you, Sozan. So if anyone has a question, raise your hand and I will bring you the mic.
I have a question first. Does anybody here study tea? There you go. There you go. Well, there's a few of you. So I guess you're familiar with these teachings. Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Sozan. I guess instead of Gasho. Thank you very much. This talk was at a very good timing for me. A couple of weeks ago, or even maybe a week and a half ago, many of us got to go visit Maya at the Green Gulch
I know.
Tea House. And your talk profoundly connected me to this kind of what I experienced. And for me, it's kind of like a spectrum. Like, here's life where we kind of talk about these pillars to a degree, right? I mean, at the basis of people's belief, but it's not structurally set up, and we don't really engage in that way. That's why I came to the monastery or temple. I feel like we actually really try for these pillars, engage in them sometime and practice them. And when I'm in the tea house, they're actually more realized and people are expressing them. And so obviously Zen practice has informed my life. Tea practice or whatever you want to call it totally has informed my Zen practice. And I can feel and sense like a inner transformation or process in that. But my concern is like it's hard because the rest of the world maybe is not set up like the tea house, where you're recognizing literally every single object and element in there, and giving the respect, right? Creating the harmony. And so anyways, if you could give me a little bit of maybe encouragement or advice around my wish, perhaps, that the rest of the world was set up in such a way.
Thank you, Eli. I guess I have 2 words for you. Petri dish. For me, that's what the tea house is in many ways. Or here, the monastery, right? The temples. It's a petri dish. Of course, the world is all kinds of messes. But there is a way in which we can bring forth these principles, for example, in the tea house, in the ceremony, and that we understand and connect with them deeper to bring out to that messy world. It's maybe a place of practice which is safe and protected for us to try this on, see how we can go deeper, and then go out. So it's for me at least, it's not that, well, there's this, and this doesn't work out there, because the world is a mess. But there's this, and this means, how do we embody this, study this, go deeper, have conversations about this, hit walls, and knowing that in this environment we can hit a wall and fall back, and you're going to be held by somebody. And then, because out there, probably you won't. So I think that's the thing. And yeah, I heard that senior staff went to O&D, went to the tea house in Green Gulch. For those who don't know, we have a beautiful tea house in Green Gulch Farm, very traditional for tea ceremonies, and classes are taught there. It's beautiful. I would encourage you to at least go for a tea house for a tea ceremony on a Sunday, or a tea gathering on a Sunday, and see what's all about. I have a feeling that in our expression of Zen in the West, we lost connection with, or somewhat lost connection with, something that for me is really important, which is all these Zen expressions or Zen practice. Calligraphy, haiku, tea ceremony, ikebana, you name it. Why is it just because it's beautiful that they're doing that, or why is that happening? And I think in our daily lives, we, not everybody, of course, and but we lost a bit of connection with that, I feel. And why are those there? Of course, they're expressions of practice. But for me, for example, tea is not just about the state of mind or understanding, but just for my clumsiness. I'm a big clumsy guy, and holding a bamboo scoop that weighs 2 grams with powdered tea and not letting that fall into the tatami, it's huge for me. For Paula, my wife, who's a very delicate artist, and she's like, I see her moving that thing around and saying, how do you do that? So that represents a lot to me, because it connects me with my clumsiness. It connects me with my everything that I don't like to see or watch. So I think a petri dish. Back to your question. How can we really explore all these expressions of practice in ways that informs us to be more robust when we go out there? And not that there's an out there and out here, you get it. But when we face the world in all its difficulties, and something happens, and you can bring yourself back to that meeting in the tea house, and just doing that, something changes. Yes. Thank you, Eli. Sorry for the long answer.
Question from online.
Hello, thanks very much for your talk today. I had a question around respect, and as I was understanding what you were sharing, that it's about paying attention, and I guess I would be curious to know any kind of examples and guidance around how to think about that, because my understanding is my attention is kind of like it's a pinhole sized what I can take in at any given point in time, and to live in the world, you have to do a lot of things on autopilot. Everything can't be done in perfect mindfulness, or rather it can, but would just be kind of inefficient. And so I'm wondering, around having this type of respect, this attention, where do you apply that? Is that just picking kind of random things like you do in a meditation, like noticing the soles of your feet, or is it just noticing when you're what's the word I'm looking for? You're kind of, I guess you're disrespecting like an interaction with a person that you've had a bad experience with, and you're sort of writing them off. Are you looking for moments in which you're suffering as the opportunity to bring that mindfulness, or is it kind of more global? And basically, where do you train your attention to start noticing where you have been ignoring something?
Great. Thank you for your question. What's your name?
Derek.
Eric. Thank you, Eric, for your question. You're in a tough spot. We are in a tough spot because, of course, this has been true forever, but now more than probably in all previous time in history, everything is competing for your attention. And there's billions of dollars behind that to compete for your attention. So if things are competing for your attention, it means that whoever wins that battle in a certain moment in time, then there's something that you are not paying attention to. And that's okay, because as you say, you cannot pay attention to everything all the time. So what do you pay attention to? And the easy answer to that, or not that easy, but the answer is to whatever is in front of you. Thing is, as I said, there's this big competition of putting as many things in front of you as possible and just screaming for your attention, and then dividing your attention into micro segments. And that is wreaking havoc in our society. So this respect, for me, begins with respecting that this is happening. Looking again, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? All this stimulus and all this, just competing for my attention. And at least I try to triage what actually needs my attention now. So to look again in the meaning of K here, means not just paying attention, but also being aware in a way that we can try to limit the scope or try to not be invaded by everything at the same time. So there's no such thing as multitasking, I don't think. You microtask. You do many things in small segments. Or you pay attention to a set of things that work together. Main thing here is, in order to pay attention, in order to look again, I think we need to step back and really triage, really start moving things around so we are not invaded by everything at the same time. Because as long as that keeps happening, it's very hard to give an answer to your question. Like, what should I pay attention to? Well, that's exactly the point. And if we, and this is something that can be intentional. You can say, okay, so I'm gonna move away as many distractions as I can to really respect what's in front of me right now and pay attention. Hard to do because, again, there's strong forces behind gaining that moment of your attention, shouting, respect me, respect me, respect me. And not impossible, but it needs real intentional practice, I think. So move out distractions, purify the present moment, right? The purity of this moment. And if you get more and more pure in your awareness of what's happening right now, then you'll be able to respect what's in front of you. I hope that kind of answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
Hi, thank you for your talk. My question is something like, can you speak briefly on how we might practice with these pillars or these qualities amidst intense pain or suffering? I think this has been touched on previously, but just that finishing up the holidays, I think that many people suffer, and particularly around that time frame, there's maybe a highlighted discrepancy, or the distance between loved ones or the loss is highlighted in life. I'm curious if you have anything that you might speak on with respect to these qualities and how to practice with anguish. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the first thing I would propose is to write them down and have them in a place where you can read them. Your fridge or something. In the midst of anguish, in the midst of complexity, we tend to forget that these actually exist, or that can be pillars. So how can you remind yourself constantly that these are things that we can work on? So that's one very practical thing. Just write them down, draw some beautiful things around them, magnet, fridge. But then I believe these are very much geared towards complexity and anguish and suffering, because this harmony and this looking back, embracing, purifying the present moment is what brings us, I think, closer to what's happening, closer to that anguish, in order to be able to work with it. So because all these four, if I should summarize it in one word, is connect. And it's through that connection that I think things can be healed. But you need to be reminded, because we go into that, whirlwinds of difficulty and anguish, and then we forget. I forget. And the teaching here, or part of this teaching, is with care and love and compassion and wisdom, become intimate. And from that place, maybe something can be solved. So, thank you very much.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Thank you for your talk. And I was wondering if you would please give another example of how you experienced the four pillars working together in your life.
Let's see. So one interesting thing here, I think, is in order to hold this temple we call life, we need the 4 pillars, right? If one of those pillars is not there, or is fragile, or is something starts to be not that stable. And the way I try to work with these are seeing how one relates to the other all the time. Not working with one in particular and maybe I'll tackle respect at another time. I'm going to focus on purity. It doesn't work for me. The only way I find that I can actually work with these is if I'm bringing this forth in my life in a way which I say, well, why is this situation bothering me, and why is this feels far from harmonious? Like, what is this difference, or what's not working here? And can I look again to what's happening? And in doing so, and going back to Eric's question online, can I remove distractions so I purify the present moment from a mindful state of being? And then boom, they're all together, and then something is upright. So the way I try to do this is working with all of them at the same time. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, thank you. I can feel that.
Thank you very much. Good.
Okay, thank you all for your questions.
May our attention extend to every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Illusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's ways unsurpassable. I